please. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I would just note that I think that an issue of this gravity, and I know that we're undergoing, there's a number of important issues that we'll be addressing prior to Christmas. And as I discussed in another committee meeting yesterday, we can do multiple important things as time requires. But I would just note specifically that when having a young family, certainly the need to balance time in that regard. But I think it's quite valid to have, if we were to meet during break weeks, which I certainly hear often from constituents, they don't have an issue with us working, including quite often traveling back and forth. I'm a Western MP, so it's not always easy, especially when you have to deal with Pearson Airport to get here. But constituents certainly expect us to do the good work, and there's this unique opportunity, which, to speak to the change in the number of meetings. It makes perfect sense, because if we were to meet over the course of break week, resources would not be as big of an issue. We could have quite possibly longer meetings, whether that's 3-hour meetings. It could be scheduled in a way that could maximize the efficiency of travel, and we could ensure that we are dealing with this important issue in the manner that, especially our public servants that could be affected by this. I think there's the fact that we have a lot of unanswered questions, and I won't speak beyond. I'll reserve a few comments, maybe, Mr. Chair, for the larger debate on the motion. I think I'm on that speaking list. But I think it makes perfect sense, and I certainly I know public servants will be working during the weeks in January that we're back in our constituents in our constituencies, and to be able to plan around that, I think, is entirely reasonable. Canadians expect us to be doing this good work, and while public servants are at work during those weeks in January, I think it's entirely reasonable that we get answers on their behalf, standing up for those people that may have had their privacy breached. And especially, and again, I won't get into the substance of why this is important, but the fact that we would not move expeditiously, I think, is not serving well those who work diligently to endeavour to provide the services that we all depend on as parliamentarians, but greater than that, the Canadians depend on. And the fact that those unanswered questions remain is deeply problematic. So a couple fewer meetings, could be longer in duration. Get this done efficiently, ensure that we do the work that is required to get the answers that the Canadians, and in this case, those people that work for these 13 departments, deserve. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much, Chair. You know, it's disappointing that Ms. Kuzi's amendment didn't pass, because I think that Madame Kuzi, or Mademoiselle Kuzi, if you could say. Look, this is an issue where we have. It's quite shocking, really, and I know that we've heard a number of issues brought before this committee that speak to something that Mrs. Kuzi indicated that is very, very telling, and that's the normalization of surveillance. You know, we had over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, we learned through the work of this committee after it was initially reported in the media, and we endeavoured to get answers on the fact that millions of Canadians' cell phone records, the data, location data, incredibly detailed records, terrifying, quite frankly. And that's not just my words. I know I heard from many in terms of the witnesses that appeared before this committee, but also constituents and Canadians that reached out, sharing their feedback with myself and my colleagues, that the government didn't see a concern with that massive amount of data that was being used to pursue a public policy agenda. Now, we've had the discussions before this committee that there is a place, a time, for extreme measures to be used. We've heard that in the context of criminal investigations. We've heard that in the context of ensuring that children are not exploited. And we're in the process of a social media study that is addressing some of those things where there have to be those tensions kept. But Chair, what has been revealed is quite shocking, and I think that part of that. Let me just share a little bit of what I think is a culture shift, and where as we see the evolution of technology take place at such a rapid rate. I was a part of the debate in the House the other day that happened to involve some concerns around artificial intelligence, and even that there are some members that don't know what AI and chat-based AI is, was quite shocking, because over the last 12 or 13 months since specifically ChatGPT and there are a host of others, some of which are available in Canada, some of which are not, some of which are available to the public, others that are in the process of being researched. We see a radical shift taking place in technology, and yet the legislation that is governing many of the aspects of that in our country is decades old. In fact, much of the legislation predates the existence of these things that we all depend on, and that much of our life depends on. And I know modern workplaces and employers are in order to, sometimes it's to maximize efficiency and worker productivity. There's the bring your own device. A lot of workplaces have policies related to that. And there's this tension that does, in fact, need to be found, because of course we want to ensure that there's the ability for things like criminal investigations and other words to take place. But the fact that we see the government did not do their due diligence. This is the exact thing on this issue and the myriad of others. It's almost too long to list the number of times where we have seen the government does not do their due diligence, which results in an erosion of trust in the institutions. The fact that privacy impact assessments were not done, that the concerns, and these are federal government employees, Chair, that expect their employer, the federal government, and by essence the people of this country. They expect them to be respected in their workplace. That's a reasonable expectation. I think that as my colleague shared, that's something that deserves getting answers for. So when and this motion that Mr. Villemere has brought forward is, I think, a productive step in that direction, to simply be able to start getting some answers so that we can find out exactly why these questions were not asked in the beginning. I am, quite frankly, Chair, very frustrated and tired of hearing ministers and senior officials sit before this committee and many others that say just one of a couple of things. One is just trust us. Well, I'm sorry. That's been proven time and time again. We can't do that. That trust has been broken, and trust is something that is earned. Certainly these Liberals have not earned the trust of Canadians, as we see demonstrated very often. But further than that, we see that they're simply not willing to take that extra work to do the additional and required, what people would think is required. So take the privacy impact assessment process as part of that. We heard from the RCMP when it came to investigative tools that it was coming. It was coming. Hadn't been done yet. When the media reported on it, they started the process, and they simply shared with us that don't worry about it, it's coming. Well, I'm sorry. That's simply not good enough. We need to ensure, and if due diligence is not done, it calls into question not only the motives. And look, it's within the realm of possibility that there are valid reasons. But if there are valid reasons, then those valid reasons should stand up to scrutiny. And that's where the government seems to be unwilling at best. But I fear it's worse than that. That they are not able to that it's causing the erosion of the trust that we should be able to have. In this case, in departments, as employers, and the host of concerns that are brought. Certainly the privacy of Canadians is a big issue. I hear that from constituents and a host of concerns. If the government is not leading by example, that's deeply problematic. And I know some of the press that we've seen on this is quite astounding. It really opens one's eyes. And when there is a host of other concerns surrounding this, we see that we have to get answers. I think that is the very least that we can do. And then in the process of getting these answers, we can, and I would hope, Chair, be able to make some very positive recommendations that allow us to provide the recommendations, the framework, the suggestions, and ultimately the accountability that is required to be able to address the concerns that are being highlighted. So I'll leave my comments there, Mr. Chair, but just to emphasize, let's get this done. I think we could have at least started that process over the course of some of the upcoming break weeks. However, nonetheless, it's an important issue that we should be able to get to work on, and I hope that the talk about the Liberals specifically wanting stuff, wanting transparency, wanting to get answers, and I'm sure we'll hear that here at some point. But I hope that translates into a yay vote for this motion so that we can actually get to work on it. Thank you. Thanks, Chair. And I would just highlight one troubling trend that we see with the Liberals is the disconnect between Parliament and executive government. The President of the Treasury Board, as a Minister of the Crown, I think it would be entirely justified for that that to be the first meeting that takes place. I think that the one in charge is incumbent upon the position. It speaks to that the necessity of accountability and the fact that the buck stops, and then, quite frankly, to the point, the practical matter that if more information comes up, this committee could pass a motion to have that minister appear again. The disconnect between what Parliament wants, says, and in some cases even dictates, is simply not respected by the Liberals. I think that the ability for that minister to attend the first meeting and to kick off this study makes perfect sense, and there should be there should not be a fear for that minister. If there is nothing to hide, there should not be a fear about the questions that will be asked and hopefully answered in that regard. So I certainly don't think we should support the amendment. I think that the President of the Treasury Board can start, and if it necessitates calling the President of the Treasury Board back, then so be it.